I love reading romance. My mom too. Except she loves historical romance. I, on the other hand, kinda dislike it. Well, disliked. You see, for some inexplicable reason, I found myself asking my mom a month ago if I could watch Bridgerton with her. And here I am, a month later, after consuming more Bridgerton content alongside some other historical romance, to talk about Colin and Penelope. This won't be a is the book or the show better, because the two have diverged so much it reads like two separate stories. Even though the show improved on some issues in the book, it brought some unnecessary changes that not only didn't work, but made some moments hard to watch. Before I get into that, I would like to summarize what Bridgerton is. It all started with a series of books by Julia Quinn, the first published on January 5th, 2000, under the title The Duke and I. That and the following 7 books follow 8 children of the late Viscount Bridgerton, each finding love in an early 19th century England, commonly known as the Regency era. The show is an adaptation of those books, and each season has followed the chronological order of the books up until season 3, which adapted the 4th book that follows Penelope Featherington and Colin Bridgerton, the 3rd oldest Bridgerton sibling. As with a lot of adaptations, the show diverged a bit when it comes to certain plot points from the books, and we could see that the most in this 3rd season now, when both parts have come out. I won't go into all the differences, as I'm also not completely well versed in the Bridgerton lore, but I would rather like to go over a couple of changes and discuss why some did not work as intended in the show. I will only go over the changes done to Penelope and Colin's story because I do not want to waste my time talking about how Eloise was kind of a bad person this season, or how unnecessary practically all of the side stories were, because then I would make the same mistake Netflix did, which was to not flesh out enough the main 2 characters. So, my dearest gentle reader, without any further ado, let's start being angry about a fictional story. Colin was always described as the most sensible out of all Bridgerton siblings, and he's praised for helping others. While that is a virtue indeed, it has created an issue with Colin. He started seeing others as incapable of doing things themselves, deeming his help as a necessity. The best example of that can be seen with the way he thinks he needs to rescue ladies, especially Penelope. In the books, it is obvious on multiple occasions he doesn't listen to her, rather immediately assumes she's someone he needs to protect, without properly consulting her. And if Penelope disagrees with that, he deems her difficult, and even gets mad if he stays out of the loop, as if it is a betrayal he does not know all the bits and pieces of her life. Speaking of madness, he is always angry in the books, which I found quite ironic considering that it is constantly said to us, the readers, that he usually isn't like this. And in the end, the book and its characters come to a conclusion that he only behaves like this because he cares so much about Penelope. Wow, true love, I guess. I quote, "What he was not famous for, and in fact what many people would have sworn he did not possess, was a temper. And in fact, due to his remarkable self-control, no one was going to get a glimpse of it that night either. Although his soon-to-be wife might wake up the next day with a serious bruise on her arm. I'm not even gonna get into how many times he was low-key abusive. I mean, look at this." I quote, "What?" His hand closed over her upper arm with painful force. "What did you just say?" Or, I quote, "That would be Colin," he drawled, grasping her arm just above the elbow. His touch was light, but his grip was firm, and there was no way she could think that she might make an escape. Smart girl that she was, she didn't even try. I just have a question. Am I supposed to like Colin as a love interest? And it is honestly painful seeing Penelope take this shit. It is even stated at some point in the book that she's scared of him. What? Luckily, we get a couple of moments in the book where Penelope puts Colin in his place and practically tells him to frick off, which I hope to see more of in the show, to be honest. So you might have guessed it, but it was a damn good decision to tone down Colin's temper in the show. In it, although he is not aggressive per se, we still see he does not know how to listen and wants to be the hero. In episode 8, when Penelope comes to the Bridgerton house to tell Colin about Cressida's threat, he starts thinking of possible solutions to his problem. But every time Penelope wants to say something, he, alongside the rest of the people in this scene, do not listen at all. In fact, he gets so absorbed in this idea of helping others to the point he no longer sees that he views help in a very twisted way. He cares more about doing a virtuous act to fulfill his protagonist's self-image, rather than caring about the why and the person he is supposedly helping. He helps for himself, not the others, and it takes Penelope telling him she only asks for his love for him to realize that he needs to change, and it is sad that we get that change only at the very end of the season. Up until that point, the romantic scenes between Penelope and Colin were tainted, not only due to the Lady Whistledown mystery, but because there was a general lack of communication between the two. And honestly, that seems rather logical, considering how much screen time the main couple actually gets in their season. I'm not even gonna get into that, but what this lack of communication does, as I said, is it makes the romance feel rather sad. I do not want to see Penelope thinking Colin no longer loves her because he's too conceited to straight out tell her how he feels. I did not come here for drama and mystery. I'm watching rich British people in fancy dresses get it on. I'm supposed to feel happy and content after finishing a Bridgerton season. Instead, I feel empty because the conclusion does not feel deserved, as well as some crucial moments of their love story. Let's go with the carriage scene first. You know how they say the most important part of the house is the base, as in if that is not properly done, the whole house will be wonky? That is the sentiment we need to have to discuss this scene from the show. To refresh our memories, at the end of episode 4, Penelope just got rejected by Lord Debling and she's leaving the ball to go home, but Colin stops her carriage to talk to her. In the book, on the other hand, this scene happens after Penelope goes to send a paper to her publisher and Colin catches her in the act, and it is therefore the first time it is revealed to both Colin and the readers that Penelope is Lady Whistledown. Even though that scene features those lovely quotes I read before, the carriage ride and everything that happens during it works more than the show one, and there are two reasons for it. The first one is the most obvious one, and that is that Colin in the books proposes to Penelope after finding out she's Lady Whistledown. Therefore, this scene feels more emotional. The cards are out in the open and Colin still wants Penelope, and he makes the decision after knowing the truth, making it more impactful. And before anything scandalous happens, there is a long conversation the two have about the repercussions of her secret and their feelings to one another. They were able to communicate the important parts, unlike in the show, where the lack of communication was done for the sake of more drama. The show drags the Lady Whistledown plotline for 2 seasons and makes certain changes that make it more difficult to believe Colin and Penelope will be truly alright after the revelation. The reason why Colin in the book was able to go over the Lady Whistledown thing easier is because there was no Eloise-Penelope drama in the books, and Colin didn't swear he would destroy Lady Whistledown once he found her. So of course the show would not have been able to mimic how the book did it, but I still think this prolonging the inevitable was unnecessary. The simple reason is that, as I mentioned before, this is a fantasy fulfillment type of a show. You watch this for good vibes, and you watch drama shows for the drama. Bridgerton is first and foremost a romance story, and it should focus on that. Plus, if they really wanted drama, well, they still didn't have to add this, because there are so many plot lines in this season filled with exactly that. And because Colin didn't know about Penelope's secret after proposing, and we knew how impactful the revelation would be, how could we have enjoyed their quote-unquote cute moments? Penelope is most of the time stressed out of her mind, and there is always an underlying rotting feeling every time something romantic happens, as if we all know this can go up in flames in a matter of seconds. The second reason this scene was weird to me in the show is because it did not feel deserved. I'm not saying let the men suffer, muhahaha, but Colin in fact did not suffer enough. What I mean by this is there was not enough emotional and romantic tension between them. Sure, there was physical, but ultimately that played against the scene where he asks Penelope to marry him, because it looks like he made that decision due to his horniness rather than genuine feelings. Having one naughty dream doesn't equate to true love. We have witnessed Penelope pining over Colin and him and everybody else being oblivious to it. She even had to beg for a kiss, saying how she would not want to die without having her first kiss. The girlie got what she wanted, so yay to that, but ultimately Colin felt like a passive object in his own story. No thoughts head empty, one might say. It didn't feel as if his feelings were justified, like they were anything else but infatuation. He was just, oh, I guess I have feelings for Penelope now. Anyway, where's the yearning? Where's him questioning his sanity? Where is him thinking to himself, I am glad just to be in her presence? What the show did well actually was to introduce that teacher-apprentice storyline, because that would have been perfect for him discovering his feelings slowly. A lot of the people see Friends to Lovers as an easy trope to fulfill because the characters already know each other and have some sort of feelings for one another. But why this trope especially needs to be done carefully is because there are so many ways to go wrong with it. We need to see how friendship turns into a romance, and we need to see why that would happen. In Colin and Penelope's case, it kinda just went from friends to lovers because, ooh, a kiss, and Colin is suddenly in love. There was no build-up to their love story, immediately jumping from one thing to another, and I felt cheated by the show. For all the effort that has been put in previous seasons, showing us why these characters are meant to be, this one just told me, and they lived happily ever after. And I was just supposed to believe that, no questions asked. And this is further proven by the way the show rounded up Polin's relationship. Before I get into the end of season 3, I want to briefly mention another crucial moment to their love story. In the books, the characters are older, Penelope being 28 and Colin 33. and the fiasco from the end of season 2 actually took place 10 years before they got together. The way they presented this scene in the show further makes this romance feel cheap and not thought out. In the books, the scene, as I said, happened 10 years ago, and Colin was talking to his brothers, and only to them when he said he would never marry Penelope. It is later revealed he said so because his mother had been pestering him about marrying that day, and so he lashed out. When Penelope overheard him, they saw her and she roasted the hell out of Colin, and even Benedict, poor guy. So not only do we get that situation presented to us from both perspectives, but it is constantly alluded to as something Colin is very ashamed of when in his POV. But most importantly, Colin spoke to his brothers and not eligible bachelors. It was a private discussion, and even though it was a shitty thing to say, he did not make Penelope's prospects low by making her look bad in the public's eye. The book helps both Penelope and us get over that slip-up, but the show does not give us the same satisfaction. Yeah, Colin apologized, but due to the way they changed that scene, it still didn't feel deserved. The reason I'm mentioning this is because it is clear that the timeline and the development of their overall story is taken into consideration in the book. Their issues are not only presented to us, the readers, but are also discussed by Colin and Penelope, strengthening their bond in the process and showing us how deeply they care for each other. Everything that I have spoken about up until this point is the reason the final scene feels weird, and it is hard to pinpoint just one reason why. Colin and Penelope lack communication, but they also lack build-up. And they lack screen time, and many more. These details in the end did nothing to make their love story believable, and rather left me feeling empty. The groundwork, aka the entire season, was done kind of poorly. For the entirety of episodes 7 and 8, Colin and Penelope barely talked. Colin was mad, sad, being moody, and Penelope scared of what would come of their marriage. So not only were we not able to enjoy their cute scenes before the revelation, because we knew this would happen, but now the characters are not even surface level happy. Everyone is just sad all the time. After Cressida threatens Penelope and she says what happened to Colin, he completely ignores her and just wants to resolve her issue without her. When he realizes he can't, he somehow manages to listen to Penelope. I seriously don't know how, we were not shown that. And Penelope solves her problem by revealing who she is and gets the Queen's blessing to continue being Lady Whistledown. Although that was a nice and empowering moment for Penelope, no longer living in the shadows and being her true self for the first time, it left a not so pleasant aftertaste in my mouth. Because then, only then, after everything got resolved, does Colin muster up courage to be honest with Penelope and tell her how he feels. How shitty is that for an ending? Let me explain why I feel this way. First of all, it ties into the whole Colin didn't work hard enough for the relationship. Look at what he has done in the entire season. He kisses Penelope and has one naughty dream and figures that means he's in love. He ruins her possible engagement with Lord Debling before he was even sure what his feelings were, is cute until he finds out she's Lady Whistledown, and then he gets jealous and completely ignorant of her existence and feelings until the very end when he admits all this to her moments before the credits roll. And you know what stings the most? He was telling everyone but Penelope that he cares for her, while she was preparing herself for the possibility of an annulment. He even tells Cressida of all people how much he cares for Penelope. We see him smiling over her letters, but honestly that means nothing to me, because in crucial moments he did not show us that he would be there for Penelope. That might be due to his hero complex, where he does not see that being there for someone can simply mean loving them in tough times. He can be angry all he wants, and I'm not saying that he shouldn't be, because what Penelope wrote was harsh, but it is still possible to communicate all that. Instead, he makes everyone around him feel bad because he feels so. And maybe I'm a bit too negative now, but I'm just annoyed that I didn't get a feeling everything was resolved at the end. In the book, Colin is in fact the one who comes up with the plan to reveal Penelope at the end, and even though that part is also filled with questionable dialogue and actions, at least it gives us the confirmation that no matter what, Colin is there for Penelope, that he is proud of her, and most importantly, that they are partners and in this together. They act as a team. He stands in front of everybody at the ball, saying how incredible and intelligent Penelope is. In the show, he's standing on the sidelines looking very confused for some reason, and waits until everything is nicely resolved to make his move. And because Penelope still suggests an annulment, I have to assume they did not talk everything out before the ball. His insecurities got the better of him, and I'm not saying that's bad. It is good to expand on a character's personalities and make them feel more real, but because they waited until the very end to resolve the conflict, the main thing, which was supposed to be the romance, suffered from it greatly. And that makes me sad, because I was looking forward to this love story the most. It had such great potential, and the show didn't use it. I know I have been overly negative about the third season, but I do have to say I still enjoyed it. Quality and plot-wise it may not be good, but it still has that charm Bridgerton brings to the screen. It is fun watching people in fancy suits and dresses, talk in fancy way, and live in fancy houses. I enjoyed watching this with my mom and commenting on everything we would like or dislike. And again, I am biased when it comes to this season because I cared about these characters the most. But to quote Colin, I'm only so angry because I care so much about them. In the end, I think I will have to resort to Bridgerton fanfics to appease my romantic heart, but that's all I want to say today. What did you think of this season and Polin's love story? Did you have a more positive view on it? And if you read the book, do you prefer it over the show? Thank you for watching, and until next time. Bye bye!